Now, the Islamic terror cell allegedly responsible for the deadly siege in Algeria says France is carrying out a crusader campaign in the region. 38 hostages were killed after militants captured a remote gas plant in retaliation for the ongoing French intervention in neighbouring Mali. The Islamists claim they wanted to negotiate the release of their captives, but the offer was turned down, with the Algerian military deciding to storm the facility, causing a bloodbath. More terror attacks have now been promised unless France ends its campaign in West Africa. Some of the hostage takers were militants from Libya, where Paris helped Islamists topple Colonel Gaddafi, who had warned of an impending al-Qaeda surge in the region. As Polly Boyka reports.
You wanted peace, you wanted freedom, you wanted economic progress. France, Great Britain, Europe will always stand by the Libyan people.
But a regional crisis probably wasn't what Monsieur Sarkozy anticipated when he was spearheading the military operation to topple Muammar Gaddafi. Although the former French president can't say that he hadn't been warned.
Personally, I play a significant role in establishing peace in those regions of Africa. Should the situation in Libya be unstable, al-Qaeda will establish its rule, bin Laden will return, and Libya will be another Afghanistan. Terrorists will flood to Europe.
Cut to Paris, and almost 2 years later, Muammar Gaddafi's words could well be ringing in the ears of Nicolas Sarkozy's successor, François Hollande. Having just sent troops to Mali, France's new leader could well be learning that every action has a reaction.
Not only did the French intervention in Libya not help the democratization process, which is what they said they were after, but it effectively opened up the floodgates for weapons stockpiles and fighters to leave the country and go south of the border.
To Mali, where the recently deployed French military were reportedly stunned by the technologically advanced weapons that are in the hands of their adversaries.
Nobody seems to think that perhaps organised groups could come from somewhere other than Mali. It seems they came across the nearby Libyan border. Libya is, as I say, central to all this problem because of the flood of weapons that's been produced by the collapse of the Gaddafi regime, but also by the complete failure to establish any kind of real state. You have essentially warlords operating in different parts of Libya, and you have across much of this area a situation where people have, if I can put it this way, very little civic sense. So bribery and corruption, paying off of border guards is commonplace. Gaddafi was a bitter opponent of radical Islamic groups, whatever his faults, and they now have the ability to use the chaos in Libya to provide themselves with bases.
The first effects were immediate. A hostage crisis in Algeria, said to be in retaliation for the French offensive in Mali, has already claimed the lives of dozens of civilians taken captive.
I'm frightened of terrorism, but this has always been a problem for France, whether it's Chirac or Sarkozy.
I'm French. I was born here and live here. My culture is French, but my origins are there. And if I was there, I wouldn't like another country telling me what to do.
We're scared of anything that threatens us.
France's global allies are showing signs of being sucked into the Mali conflict. British Prime Minister David Cameron has already acknowledged that battling radical insurgency in the region could take decades rather than months. And all this so that France can remedy the knock-on effects from its Libyan intervention. Polly Boyka, RT, Paris.
Well, earlier my colleague Anissa Nawi spoke with the former UK ambassador to Algeria, Graham Hand, who says the killing of several British hostages isn't enough to dissuade London from helping the French intervention.
The United Kingdom will continue to support the French intervention. I imagine that the British government will also want to support our friends in Algeria in any way that they might ask us to.
David Cameron has said that the fight against Islamic terrorists in North Africa could take decades. Can Britain really afford to get involved like they did in Afghanistan, which I should mention, of course, started out with George Bush saying that we would be in and out?
Well, politicians tend always to say we'll be in and then we'll be out. I think Mr. Cameron knows that this will take time. I don't imagine that he is thinking of committing British ground troops to North Africa, but there's a lot we can do in terms of intelligence, technology, logistics. I think it does have to be done. The question really is how can we afford not to?
There was the thought that France went in because of possible uranium resources there. What is Britain's interest then?
Well, I think Britain's interest is in having stability on the if you like, the southern flank of NATO, just across the Mediterranean from Western Europe. I don't accept these conspiracy theories about minerals. I think it's really about knowing that we have stable neighbours.
Stable neighbours, but at the same time, Britain openly backs rebels who are known to have sort of attachments to Al-Qaeda and other Islamist groups there. So where then is the consistency?
Sorry, what rebel groups are those?
In Syria.
Ah, yes, yes.
It's
well,
the same region,
really
and you're saying that's more of a geopolitical in terms of security and not resources. So where then, why yes in Syria, no in Algeria and Mali?
Well, I think it's a different story. This is not an Al-Qaeda-linked Islamist uprising in Syria. It's ordinary people who want a different life. They want to be rid of a tyrant Assad in charge of them. And this will solve itself, apparently without any intervention from the outside. I think the story in Mali is completely different. This is a foreign intervention by the Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists themselves. This is not honest Malians trying to change the government.
The political analyst John Laughlin says Western countries support Islamists when it's in their geopolitical interest to do so.
I greatly enjoyed the ambassador's discomfiture when you put him that question. I mean, he doesn't have an answer, and the Western governments do not have an answer to the question you put, which is to say, why do we support Islamic or Islamist rebels in Syria and yet send troops in to crush Islamist rebels in Mali? There's no way of squaring the circle. These are simply double standards. By the same token, why did we support last year the secession of South Sudan? But we suddenly send in troops to prevent the secession of North Mali. These are political decisions. We are taking political decisions on the basis of our political vision and our friends and enemies. And that's the reason why we do one thing in Syria and the other thing in Mali. And as for encouraging stability, I mean, that really does take the cookie to say that. You know, we have practically the whole of the Middle East, including North Africa, in turmoil. We, the West, have supported the great uprisings of the Arab Spring, only to find that the regimes they have produced have an important Islamic element. These are conundrums which the West has not solved and is not solving. It is, on the contrary, making matters worse.